The cameras were live. Hudson Williams stopped mid-sentence. He reached across Jimmy Fallon's desk, took a small blue envelope, and everything changed. It was a Tuesday night in October. The Tonight Show starring Jimmy Fallon. Studio 6A at Rockefeller Center. Another packed audience, another celebrity interview, another night of laughter and music, and the carefully orchestrated chaos that had made Jimmy Fallon America's favorite late-night host. Hudson Williams was the guest, a 26-year-old actor whose indie film had just premiered at Sundance to rapturous reviews. He was charismatic, funny, the kind of guest who made interviews easy. They'd been talking for maybe 4 minutes. Jimmy had asked about the film. Hudson had delivered a charming anecdote about shooting in Montana. The audience was laughing. Everything was flowing perfectly. Jimmy leaned forward with his next question. "So I heard there's a scene in the movie where you." Hudson stopped him. Not with words, with a look. His smile faded. His eyes drifted past Jimmy to something on the desk. A small blue envelope. Partially hidden under the stack of blue cue cards Jimmy used for interviews. "I'm sorry," Hudson said, his voice suddenly different, quieter, uncertain. Is that for me?" Jimmy glanced down at his desk, confused. "What?" "The envelope. The blue one with my name on it." The audience fell silent. This wasn't part of the script. Celebrity interviews didn't pause for envelopes. Jimmy looked genuinely bewildered. "I don't," Jimmy started, then picked up the envelope. Sure enough, written in careful handwriting across the front. "For Hudson Williams, please read on air." Cameras were live when young actor Hudson Williams suddenly went silent, reached for a small envelope from Jimmy's desk, and what he read changed the atmosphere of the entire studio. Jimmy held the envelope, uncertain. "I didn't. This wasn't here during rehearsal. Someone must have put it here before we started taping. Can I open it?" Hudson had been waiting for exactly this moment to surface. His shoulders shook. The letter trembled in his hands. Jimmy was out of his chair instantly. Not the planned movement of a host doing a bit urgent, instinctive. He came around the desk and crouched beside Hudson's chair, one hand on the young actor's shoulder. "Hey," Jimmy said softly, his microphone barely picking it up. "You okay? Do you need a minute? We can stop." "No," Hudson managed, wiping his face with the back of his free hand. "No, I need to read this out loud." She wanted me to read it out loud. "Who's she?" Hudson looked at Jimmy, then out at the audience, then at the cameras. When he spoke, his voice was thick with tears but steady with purpose. "My mom. This is from my mom. She died 6 months ago. Pancreatic cancer. She was 53. The audience made a collective sound. That soft intake of breath that happens when strangers suddenly share an unexpected grief. To understand what happened next, you need to understand what happened 8 months earlier. Hudson Williams wasn't always Hudson Williams, rising young actor with a Sundance hit. 8 months ago, he was still Hudson, but he was also his mother's primary caregiver. Sarah Williams had been diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer in January. The prognosis was 8 to 12 months. She was a high school English teacher in Portland, Oregon. Single mother. She'd raised Hudson alone after his father left when he was 3. Every acting class Hudson had taken, every headshot, every audition in Los Angeles, Sarah had made it possible on a teacher's salary and sheer force of will. When the diagnosis came, Hudson quit everything. He was in the middle of shooting the indie film that would change his career. But none of that mattered. He moved back to Portland. He became his mother's full-time caretaker. Sarah had insisted he finish the film. "You have 4 weeks left of shooting," she'd said from her hospital bed. "Go finish it. I'm not going anywhere yet." So Hudson had flown. September. Hudson attended alone. Every interview, every Q&A, every moment of celebration felt hollow. He smiled for cameras. He thanked the director and cast. He played the role of grateful young actor perfectly. But inside, he was drowning. Subscribe and leave a comment because the most powerful part of this story is still ahead. The Tonight Show booking came 3 weeks before the taping. Hudson almost turned it down. How could he sit on that couch and be funny and charming when his mother wasn't alive to watch? His manager convinced him. "It's Jimmy Fallon. He's the kindest host in the business, and your mom would want you to do it." So Hudson said yes. He prepared his anecdotes. He practiced his timing. He got ready to play the role one more time. What he didn't know was that his mother had planned for this moment. 6 weeks before she died, Sarah had called her oldest friend, Margaret Chin. Margaret was a producer at NBC, not on The Tonight Show, but she had connections. "I need you to do something for me," Sarah had said, her voice already weakening. "Hudson's going to be on Fallon someday. I know he will. When he does, I need you to get this letter to him." She'd written it over the course of 3 days. Every word carefully chosen. Every sentence a gift she knew she wouldn't be alive to give in person. Margaret had kept the letter for 5 months. When she saw Hudson's name on the Tonight Show booking sheet, she'd cried in her office for 10 minutes. Then she'd called in a favor. She'd given the blue envelope to a production assistant with specific instructions. Place it on Jimmy's desk, partially hidden under the cue cards, right before Hudson's interview segment. No one told Jimmy. No one told Hudson. The letter appeared like a ghost, exactly as Sarah had planned. Now Hudson sat in the guest chair, holding his mother's final words, while Jimmy Fallon crouched beside him and 300 strangers waited in reverent silence. "Can I read it?" Hudson asked the audience, his voice be. "You learn to find humor in darkness, because that's what we did together. In the way you know how to make people feel seen, because I taught you that empathy and comedy are the same gift. Don't you dare hold back tonight. Don't you dare dim your light because you think joy is disrespectful to grief. I didn't raise you to be sad. I raised you to be brilliant and kind and so funny that strangers feel like they know you. So tonight on that couch with those cameras on you, be yourself. Make them laugh like you've always made me laugh, and know that every single word, every smile, every moment of connection you create with an audience is me still teaching you, still proud of you, still loving you more than any mother has ever loved anyone. You were the best thing I ever did, Hudson. Not just because you're talented, but because you're good. Keep being good. Keep making people laugh. Keep showing the world what I already knew. That you were always meant for this. I love you forever, Mom." Behind the scenes, Fallon made a decision that defied every producer's expectation. Hudson's hands were shaking so badly he could barely hold the letter. Tears were streaming down his face. He looked up at Jimmy, who was crying too, not even trying to hide it. The entire studio was weeping. Audience members holding each other, the Roots wiping their eyes. Camera operators with tears running down their faces while they kept the shot steady. Jimmy stood slowly. He looked at the letter in Hudson's hands. Then he did something completely unprecedented. He took off his tie. It was navy blue with small white dots. Jimmy's signature style. He'd been wearing ties like this for 15 years of hosting. But now he carefully loosened the knot, pulled it over his head, and placed it in Hudson's lap. "My mom gave me this tie," Jimmy said, his voice thick with emotion. "On my first night hosting this show," she said, "wear something that reminds you why you're here. To make people feel something real." To me we're make them laugh," Hudson said, his voice stronger now. "So, I'm going to tell you the funniest thing she ever said to me." The audience waited. 2 days before she died, she was in and out of consciousness. The hospice nurse told me she probably couldn't hear me anymore. But I was sitting by her bed and suddenly she opened her eyes, looked right at me, and said, "Hudson, if you ever win an Oscar and don't thank me first, I will haunt you so hard you'll think Paranormal Activity was a documentary." The audience erupted, not in polite television laughter, but real, cathartic, joyful laughter. The kind of laughter that breaks through grief. The kind Hudson's mother had spent his whole life teaching him to create. Hudson laughed too, crying and laughing at the same time. "So Mom, if you're watching, I promise. First, thank you goes to you always." Jimmy pulled Hudson into a tight embrace. The studio rose as one standing ovation that lasted 3 full minutes. Not for a performance, for courage, for love, for a mother's final gift to her son. When they finally sat back down, Hudson carefully folded the letter and placed it in his jacket pocket. Jimmy's tie went there, too. "Keep it," Jimmy said. "Wear it when you need to remember that making people laugh is sacred work. Share and subscribe. Make sure this story is never forgotten." The interview never resumed. They went straight to commercial. During the break, Hudson told the crew to keep everything in the broadcast. "She planned this. People need to see it. That night became the most watched Tonight Show segment in 5 years. Hudson's mother's letter was read at grief counseling groups across the country. Jimmy never asked for his tie back. 6 months later, Hudson won Best Actor at the Independent Spirit Awards. His first words: "My mom Sarah Williams who taught me that laughter and love are the same thing." He was wearing Jimmy's tie.